Dear students, today our topic is secondary education. Secondary education, its goals, purposes, aims and objectives. Before going through, let's first go through the concept of the secondary education. Secondary education is the kind of education which is given after primary education and before higher education. At some places, secondary classes begin from the 6th class and go up to 12th. Elsewhere, upper primary classes go up to the 8th class and secondary classes start from the 9th and go up to 11th or 12th. Secondary education is concerned primarily with providing young people with opportunities to achieve a successful transition from childhood dependence on their elders to adults' independence and assumption of responsibility for the welfare of others. Secondary education should be determined by the needs of the society to be served, the character of the individual to be educated, the knowledge of educational theory and practice available. Secondary education, as all public education, is a function of the state. As a result, we do not have one system of secondary education. Each state has authority to determine scope, requirements, standards, and every detail of the public and private educational programs within its boundaries. The secondary school period is characterized by the desire of the individual to grow up and to show it. The content of secondary school education should highlight the cultural and intellectual tradition of each country. It should also be directed in strengthening of respect of human right, fundamental freedom and people's rights. It should promote peace, international understanding and friendship among all nations. It should counter social segregation and discrimination on grounds of race, sex or religion. The origin of secondary education in India. The origin of secondary education in India can be traced to the efforts of Christian missionaries. They established private institutions in Bengal during the later part of the 18th and the beginning of 19th century with the main purpose of spreading English education, European culture and Christian faith among the natives. Historically, secondary education in India made a dent with the Charter Act of 1813, putting the responsibilities of education on East India Company. Then the Wood's Dispatch in 1854 gave it further impetus, relegating the mother tongue in the background and making English the medium of instruction, with secondary education going under university control. The recommendations of Hunter Commission in 1882 helped in the growth of secondary school with academic curriculum. It was for the first time that the Sargent Report 1944 recommended that secondary education should not be considered preliminary stage to university education but a stage complete in itself. Schools be organized on technical and academic basis, mother tongue be the medium of instruction, salaries of the teachers be increased, girls' education be encouraged, high school entry to be made selective. Tarachand Committee in 1948-49 discovered that our secondary education remains the weakest link in our educational machinery and needs urgent reform. Though secondary education forms an integral part in the development of the entire education system. Now the objectives of the secondary education. Having achieved its political freedom, India has decided to transform itself into a secular democratic republic. The educational system must therefore make its contributions to the development of habits, attitudes, and qualities of character, which will enable its citizens to bear worthily the responsibilities of democratic citizenship and counteract all those vociferous tendencies which hinder the emergence of a broad national and secular outlook. The objectives of the secondary education as recommended by the Mudaliar Commission may be briefed as democratic citizenship. Education should aim at the development of democratic citizenship in the future citizens of the nation. Good citizenship in a democracy is a very challenging responsibility for which every citizen has to be trained carefully. This involves development of the required intellectual, social, and moral qualities in our youngsters. Though education should aim at developing the qualities for inculcating democratic citizenship, such as clear thinking, there is a social cooperation, true patriotism, world citizenship. Now there is another objective as per the Mudaliar Commission, it is the education for leadership. The secondary education should train the persons to assume the responsibility of leadership in social, political, industrial, and cultural life of their country or community. Then we can say secondary education also plays a vital role as the aim of leadership training. Training and leadership forms an important part of democratic education. Persons should be trained to know their rights and privileges, to shoulder their responsibilities, to discharge their duties. So, in accordance with the roles and the statuses they attain as adult members of the society, education for leadership extends to such varied fields as behavioral and emotional stability, ethical and moral strength, adequacy of the communication, instruction, inspection, supervision, and then administration, research, planning, etc. Improvement of vocational efficiency. We must concentrate on increasing the productive or technical and vocational efficiency of our student by creating in them a new attitude to work, an attitude that implies an appreciation of dignity of all work. Thus, there should be much emphasis on crafts and productive work in all schools. Diversification of courses should be introduced at the secondary stage so that a large number of students may take up agriculture, technical, commercial, or other practical courses which will train their varied aptitudes. That is to say, that education should aim at the preparation of the child for vocation as well as vocation also. They must be able to produce and contribute to the national wealth, the aim of personality development. Personalities do not exist in vacuum then, but to a large extent depend upon social environment. The modern contention is that Education should aim at the all-round development of an individual. It should help for the development of well-integrated and wholesome personality of the students. Intellectual quickness. We talk about the intellectual quickness, constructive talents, and artistic tastes to be hastened through the education endeavors. Development of individual personality include such factors as physical, mental, social, emotional, religious, aesthetic, and spiritual aspects. Good physical growth is the prerequisite for the sound mental development and formation of emotional stability and social sensitiveness. It is again the job of the education to develop among the learners. Personality devoid of character is considered to be null and void. Hence, character development also forms a chief component of the development of personality. Now, the goals and the purposes. Why we talk about the secondary education, why there should be the vocationally efficiency, why there should be democratic citizenship, why there should be the leaders, and why there should be the development of the personality. Because the secondary education promotes the development of a skilled and knowledgeable citizenry. For the development of global economy, it is evidenced that early expansion of and public investment in secondary education paid rich dividends in East Asia. Hence, secondary education is crucial for economic growth. Also, investment in secondary education yields considerable social and private returns, offering young people the chance to acquire attitudes and skills which in turn enables youth to develop job-oriented skills, participate fully in society, take control of their own lives, and continue learning. Secondary education has more significant effect on the redistribution of income, growth, and reducing the poverty than primary education. Secondary education provides an indispensable link to the whole education that forms the interconnectivity to the higher education system by providing the required input. Indeed, primary and secondary schooling is considered as successful phase of continuing process and should be made available to all children. According to UNESCO, the improvement of secondary education should be seen in the perspective of lifelong education. The organization of secondary education should be flexible. Secondary education is very important from individual social, economic, and educational points of view, as secondary education deals with the adolescence period of child's development. Secondary education plays an important role in training the youth of the country to take an effective part in the social reconstruction and economic development of their country. Secondary education determines the quality of education both at the primary and the higher stages of education. Because of its vital importance, it is essential that secondary education should be of the highest quality. So, dear students, this was all about the secondary education, its objectives, goals, and purpose. This was our today's topic. Thank you for today. See you next time.